All right, guys, we are back on this Chevy Corvette. We did part 1 of the diagnosis process on this Chevy Corvette with cameraman Kyler. Cameraman Kyler is not here with us today. We have cameraman Matt. Cameraman Matt, thanks for being behind the camera. So last time we did a relative compression test. We made sure that we don't have a mechanical problem with the engine. And then we brought the vehicle in the shop. We did more tests while we were doing our live stream. So to those of you who didn't watch the live stream, I recommend you go watch the live stream and see what the other tests that we did on this engine. So just to recap, we have a random multiple cylinder misfire on this vehicle. Our issue is not a mechanical problem. We also checked fuel pressure. We have enough fuel pressure in the rails. So now we have to figure out what's causing this engine to misfire. So we're continuing our diagnosis process. So now what I want to do is I would like to use my Autel lab scope. We're going to analyze the secondary ignition waveform on the ignition coils. We're going to check the secondary ignition waveforms on 2 coils on this engine, and then we're going to compare them. Remember when we looked at the data last time, we had negative numbers. We had high negative numbers on the long-term fuel trims, so which told us that the engine computer is reducing the injector pulse because there's too much fuel going in the cylinders, or the fuel that's going in the cylinder is not burning properly. So our issue may most likely be on the ignition side of the engine. So now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna get my Autel lab scope set up, and then I'll bring you guys back up so we can continue our diagnosis process. I'm gonna get my lab scope set up here. I love using this Autel lab scope. I should be using this Autel lab scope a lot more because this is wireless. So we're gonna put our VCMI over here, and then we're using our secondary ignition pickup. So I'm gonna clip this around the spark plug wire, and then we're gonna connect our ground to the alternator bolt, just like that. Okay, so right there. Now I'm gonna grab another one. We're gonna grab another probe. So I'm going to connect this to the cylinder next to it. Maybe, no, I'm gonna go connect this on the other side just so I can watch the ignition waveform, the secondary ignition waveform on both sides. So I'm just clipping this over here around the spark plug wire. And then this one I'm going to ground at the battery. Just like that. Okay, perfect. So now I'm gonna grab, where's my Autel tablet? So I might be a little bit rusty on using the Autel lab scope, so slow with the criticism. Uh-oh, our VCMI battery is gonna die. So let's do this test before the VCM battery dies. So we're gonna turn on both channels. Okay, so we're gonna select our probe. We're gonna be on the secondary ignition probe. All right, so now what I love about the Autel scan tool is that, you know, I can just walk around with the tablet while everything is connected to the VCMI, and this is really awesome. So now I am going to start the engine. Let's see what we're gonna find. All right, so as you can hear, the engine is running. See, I need to be using this lab scope a lot more often because I'm forgetting how to use it. Okay, so now we're gonna trigger this. Okay, you guys will see this on the screen. this secondary ignition doesn't look good. The waveform here doesn't look good. Huh, interesting. So our firing line, let me increase our scale here. Our firing line looks good. We're hitting about 16.6 kilovolts, but I don't like the firing line here. Let me rev up the engine. So you guys will see this as cameraman Matt keeps this on the screen. Interesting. I don't like this ignition waveform. This doesn't look good. So let's now this could be caused by not enough fuel getting in the cylinder. Okay, I gotta redo my homework when it comes to secondary ignition waveforms. I mean, I haven't done this in a while, so slow down. Don't criticize me on this, guys. Let's check the second channel. So green trace kind of looks the same. Interesting. Now the fact that our our fire line over here is high, this tells me that our coil is most likely good. Oh man, this thing is gonna die. So we're charging the battery on the VCMI, so we're good there. Let me rev up the engine again. I'm watching this secondary ignition waveform. Yeah, this waveform doesn't look good. I mean, the coil is building enough energy, enough voltage to fire the spark plug, but our spark line over here does not look good. We should have, I mean, this is not going down to ground. Let me turn off the engine. Okay, so I don't think we have a coil problem, and I also don't think this is a spark plug issue based on the waveform that I see on the lab scope screen. It kind of feels like we don't have enough fuel getting in the cylinder. Now, do we have injectors that are not spraying enough fuel in the cylinders? That's possible. Here's what I'm gonna do, just for gigs and giggles, like Eric O says. I would like to, I think I have a similar engine out here that I took out of a Chevy Silverado that I did a while back. I replaced an engine on a Chevy Silverado and I kept that engine. That engine had two dead cylinders, two cylinders that had low compression. So I'm gonna see if I can steal the coils from that one, from that engine, and put the coil here to see if our secondary ignition waveform is gonna change. I don't think that's the issue, but we have it, why not? So cameraman Matt, if you can come on this side, I'm going to remove one ignition coil, and then the spark plug, I'm gonna take you guys with me outside so we can go remove the coil out of that engine. I believe the coils look similar. Okay, so we're gonna remove this coil. Okay, so here's the coil. We're gonna remove it. I'm gonna pull the spark plug wire out Here's our spark plug wire. There's no metal around this car. Everything is plastic. Is that better? So we're gonna remove the spark plug. So we're gonna try this. I mean, I don't think this is our problem, but let's just try it and see what happens. Because there's a possibility that he got bad ignition coils. Look at the plug. It looks like the spark plug is burning. Okay, we're gonna put this over here. So Matt, you can come with me. Let's go outside to the engine that I have over here. Now this engine, let me pull my knee pads up. So I have this engine covered. I'm planning on doing a engine teardown video on this one. So eventually, when I have time, we will do a teardown video on this engine. Ta-da! What do you think, Matt? Look at the coil. So this coil looks like the coil that we have in the Corvette, right? Good. So I'm gonna disconnect the electrical connector here. This engine was fine. All these components are good. The issue here was 2 cylinders had low compression. So we're gonna grab the wire. We're also gonna grab the spark plug. And then once we install this spark plug in the Corvette and the coil, if our secondary ignition looks different, our secondary ignition waveform, if it looks different, then we will know that the issue is the ignition coils and maybe the plug too. Look at this plug. This doesn't look too bad. Okay. We're also gonna remove the coil. Again, we're just trying this. You know, we have these coils here and there's spark plugs here. Why not? Okay. Sometimes you gotta use your resources to help with the diagnosis process. So now let's go install these components on the Corvette and see what we're gonna find. I'm gonna start by installing the plug first. Okay, so we're gonna tighten our spark plug. It's not a brand new plug, but it's a good plug. Okay. So now we're gonna install our ignition coil that came out of our used engine. I'm doing this because the customer told me that he got the parts online. So every time I hear that parts were bought from online, I'm always skeptical about those parts. So we're gonna connect the coil, electrical connector. We're gonna connect the wire from the used engine. Nice. Okay, so here's the coil that came out of the Corvette. And then where's the wire? And the wire and the plug. So now we're gonna connect our secondary ignition probe there. We're gonna ground it here. Okay, so this one is, let me see, because we're gonna compare this to the one that we have on the other bank. So this is gonna be the green trace. So the one on this bank, on the driver's side bank, is the green trace, and then the other one is the red trace. All right, I'm gonna start the engine. Let's see what we're gonna find. So there's kind of a slight difference on the secondary ignition waveform, but it looks the same to what we had. Let me switch to the other trace. Yeah, look at that. So red trace is the probe that's on the passenger side, and then green trace is the probe that's on the driver's side. Look, they look identical. So the fact that they look identical, our issue is not the ignition coil. Yeah, this is not the issue. All right, let me turn off the engine. All right, well, if we had bought these parts, we would have been wrong. So it's not the coil, it's not the plug. What is it? Remember, the customer told us that he replaced all the coils, all the injectors, mass airflow sensor was replaced. So here's what I'm gonna do. Now it's time to bring out the big guns. Okay, so I'm gonna bring out the big guns. I'm gonna bring out my ATS scope. Right now, what I want to do is I want to do an in-cylinder test. I want to do a in-cylinder pressure transducer test. I'm gonna look at my my ignition control and my injector on time or injector pulse. So I want to see if I want to make sure. Sorry guys, I'm thinking, because at this point I'm trying to figure out what could be the cause, because we don't have, our issue is not compression. We have good fuel pressure at the rails. Our coils seem to be working fine, you know, based on the high voltage spike that I see over here, the firing line on the secondary ignition waveform. This looks good. So this tells me our coils are fine. Then why is it misfiring? And the misfire is affecting all the cylinders. What can it be? Let me know in the comment section what you would do at this point. So now I have two things I need to check. I want to go in cylinder. I'm going to put my pressure transducer in the cylinder. I want to see at what time the ignition coil is firing. Let's make sure that the ignition coil is firing at top dead center. And I also want to see when our injector is spraying fuel in the cylinder. Is the injector spraying fuel at the right time, or is it spraying it at the wrong time? So the way for us to know that will be looking at our in-cylinder and our coil control and injector control at the same time. Because we could have a crank sensor that's failing. Although we don't have a crank sensor code, we could have, I've seen bad crank sensors cause misfire codes. I've seen bad cam sensors cause this. So I'm gonna get this lab scope out of the way. I'm gonna bring out my ATS scope. Let's go in cylinders. Let's bring the big guns out and see what's gonna happen. I mean, we're gonna figure this out, but we just have to do a couple more tests to get to the bottom of this. So I will bring out my ATS scope and then I'll bring you guys back up. So we got the big gun out. We're gonna use Mr. Bernie Thompson's tools. So I'm gonna get my pressure transducer here. We're gonna use the 300 pressure transducer, and we're gonna use this hose. I'm gonna grab this also and put these over here. And then I'm going to get two test leads. Let's grab our yellow test lead and our green test lead. Perfect. Look how nice this is. I need to start using this scope a lot more. A couple weeks ago, I think a month or two ago, I went to Albuquerque to get trained by the man himself, Mr. Bernie Thompson. It was a great training class. I would recommend anybody that wants to get good at lab scope testing to go to Bernie Thompson's class. So now let's take this to the vehicle so we can get connected. Now I still have my old ignition coil here. I'm gonna remove, so this is the coil that came out of the used engine. So I'm gonna remove this. We're gonna install the coil that was here. Okay. Let's put this coil back because I want to do the testing with this coil. Nice. So now we're gonna remove our spark plug. Because we could also have a timing chain that's stretched. I've seen stretched timing chains cause random multiple cylinder misfire codes. So here comes our spark plug. I'm gonna get it out of the way. So now we're gonna screw this line, this pressure transducer line, into the spark plug hole. Nice, just like that. Let me grab the adapter. Okay, so we're gonna connect this. We're gonna connect this over here. And then we're gonna screw our pressure transducer right there. Nice. And then I'm gonna connect this wire here. Now we're not gonna leave our ignition coil just open like this. I'm gonna connect my spark plug wire back to the coil, and then we're gonna use a spark tester. We're gonna connect the spark tester to the spark plug wire. So we're gonna connect our spark plug tester, spark tester, to the plug wire, and then we're just gonna ground it somewhere here, just right here. We're just gonna ground it there, okay? And then the next thing I'm gonna do is we're going to back probe our ignition coil control wire. So I don't know if Matt can see these wires. So on these wires we have a pink wire, we have a light blue, we have a brown and black, okay? And then if you look at this coil, we have pink, purple, brown and black. So we have 3 wires that are the same on all these coils, and then we have a 4th wire that's different. So we have purple over here, we have light blue over here. I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it? So we have a light blue over here, we have pink, light blue, brown, and then black over here. Now let's look at this one more time. We have a pink, purple, brown, and then black. So since we're doing our test over here, I'm going to connect to the wire that's different on all these wires, which is this light blue. So this is gonna be our ignition control wire, okay? So that's our ignition coil control wire. And then I'm gonna connect, let me move this over here. So we're gonna connect over here. Okay, so we're connected to our ignition control wire. And then my green back probing tool, I'm gonna connect to my fuel injector control. Now, as I'm looking at the fuel injector, we have a pink and red over here. Oops, there's pink and red. And then on this one, look at this one, Matt, we have pink and yellow. So pink and yellow. So all these injectors have a pink wire, and then the other wire is different. So the wire that's the same on all the injectors in terms of color is our power feed to the injectors, and then this is the control. So since we're testing this injector here, so I'm gonna back probe this wire. So we're back probing the control wire of the injector. Nice. Good job, cameraman Matt. So right there. Nice. So now I'm gonna bring out our tablet here. So this is our ground. Okay, so Bernie Thompson says always connect your ground to battery ground. So I'm gonna go to the battery. And we're gonna connect our ground here. Okay, that's what my man Bernie Thompson says. So we got our ground connected to the battery, so we're good. So now we're gonna connect everything to the scope. We're gonna connect our ground first, and then our pressure transducer is gonna go here. Okay, now everything is labeled, so it's easy to know what you're doing here. You just follow how everything is labeled here. So we're gonna connect our first trace here, then second one is gonna go here. Okay, now cameraman Matt downloaded his software that he uses to screen record. So let's see how this is gonna go. All right, so let's start our scope here. Let's view the mirror. So we're using the first 3 channels. So the green, the yellow trace is going to be our pressure transducer. Red is going to be, let me see. Red should be our ignition control. Coil control, and then green should be our injector. Okay, good. So now let's go to deep record. We're just gonna turn on the first 2 channels. I gotta tell the scope what I'm using here. Okay, let's start our deep record. All right. So now I am going to start the engine. Let's see what we got. So as you can hear, the engine is running. I'm gonna rev it up a little. I'm gonna turn off the engine. Okay, so we're gonna stop our capture here. We're gonna analyze the data. Let's see what we got. I love this scope. So we're gonna grab our zoom window. We're gonna zoom here. Nice. So let's see. I don't like what I see over here. It looks like our injector on time is happening at the wrong time. So let me filter this. So smooth right there. So we're gonna filter the first trace. I'm gonna move my injector up. Let's also move our coil. All right, so you guys will see this on the screen as cameraman Matt will put this up. So over here, the red trace is our ignition control. So this is every time the ignition coil gets turned on, and then the green trace is when the injector gets turned on. So it looks like the injector is being turned on at the wrong time because the injector is being turned on around the opening of the exhaust valve. So I'm going to mark this. Let's mark this. Let's see what we got. I'm going to grab my cursors. Get cursors. Yeah, this is a problem, guys, because I don't like what I see here. Our fuel injectors are firing at the wrong time. So let's mark this. There. So this is our, Robin, look at this. How cool is this? So this is our compression stroke. This is power. This is our exhaust stroke. This is the intake. So our injector should be firing around this area. But it's firing back here.
Yeah.
Okay, so the injectors are firing at the wrong time. So our ignition coil is firing at the right time because this is the on time. Okay, this red trace. You see this little square wave you see over here?
Yeah.
This is the computer turning on the coil.
Yes.
So the coil is turning on at the right time. So right here, kind of at top dead center. Okay, at the peak over here of the compression tower. Okay, but our injector is firing at the right time. So our injector should be firing around this area.
So you prepare for the sparks again when it comes to TDC.
Yeah, when it comes to TDC. So it's firing. I mean, the injector is firing late, basically. How cool is this? The power of the lab scope. This is awesome. So based on what I see over here on the lab scope screen, our ignition coils are firing at the right time, but the injectors are not. So now what's causing this?
So we gotta go back and check for the crank correlation code between crankshaft sensor and camshaft sensor.
Yeah, that is a great answer because the crank sensor on most applications or most makes and models, the crank sensor is in charge of the ignition coils.
Right.
So the crank sensor is what turns on the ignition coils. And then the cam sensor is what turns on the injectors. So at this point, based on what I see, we could have, because it's the injectors that are firing at the wrong time, right?
Yes.
So we could have a cam sensor that's failing, or we could have a stretched timing chain.
That's really bad.
You know, that's making that's causing the cam sensor signal to not line up properly.
Right.
And once the computer is seeing those signals, it's not knowing exactly where to fire the injectors, so it's just firing them like that, and that's going to cause a misfire. Now, the question you might have, I mean, if you want to ask this question, I mean, when I do diagnosis, I always, in the back of my mind, I'm still asking questions, you know, and it's like I try to go around and around in my mind. I'm trying to figure out what happened, like why. Because at this point, I mean, you guys will see part 1 before this part. The code we had was P0300.
Oh, random misfire.
Random misfire. There was no cam sensor code. Why don't we have a cam sensor or a crank sensor code?
That's weird.
Yeah.
That is weird.
We don't. So, very interesting.
So, could it be like the timing is right, and then the sprocket is wrong? Like my hands, like one is supposed to be like this, and one's like move like this.
Yeah, that's possible. Yes, I'm glad you're bringing that up. Actually, Robin is bringing out a very great point because there are times where, you know, to some of you that are very familiar with camshaft phasers.
Yes.
So you can have a engine that's in time. So the chain could be in time. I mean, the cam and the crank could be in time.
Right.
But if you have a trigger wheel that's on the phaser,
Right,
and you
right.
know inside the phaser you have a big spring.
Right.
Sometimes over time that spring can get weak, and then the trigger wheel can move a little bit,
Right.
and that can cause that too. So you can still be in time
Right.
on the back. You know, the chain, you know, from the cam to the crank, you can still be in time. But if you have a trigger wheel that moved a little bit,
Right.
that can cause this too.
So how would we differentiate the difference now?
That's a good question. How would we know? Now we would have to get a non-good cam and crank
Right.
correlation waveform, and then right now the next thing I want to do right now is I want to get to my cam sensor signal and crank sensor signal
Right.
to look at both signals, and then we can compare them to see if this engine is in time, to make sure that nothing moved. And also, I want to give a shout out to my man Jeff at ATS. Actually, Jeff helped me out with these waveforms. I mean, every time I have a question, I call Jeff. He's always ready to answer my questions. He's always ready to take my phone calls. I don't know if Jeff will watch this video. I wanted to give a shout out to Jeff. So thank you very much. Now, I am going to find a cam and crank correlation waveform, a good one. We have to get a non-good
Yes.
that we're going to compare to this one.
Right.
And then after we do that, we should be good to go. What do you think?
That's a perfect idea.
You think it's a perfect idea?
Yeah.
You think we're on the right path?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so, and I know I don't really do this as much. I mean, we can go into more details and figure out valve opening and valve closing and all this stuff. I mean, Jeff and Bernie Thompson are way better than me. Bernie Thompson is gonna explain this way better than I can, okay? So, I've seen these waveforms so many times. So just by looking at it, I can tell that something is off. Just the position of
The injectors
the injectors, yeah, is not right.
should be the right. It should be on right here in the middle.
Yeah, so it should be kind of,
Right there.
yeah, kind of right here. You see where it says intake?
Right.
Because think of it. When the
Oh.
intake valve opens,
It's
that's
fuel.
when the injector
It's fuel,
sprays,
right,
right? It sprays fuel in the intake,
Right.
in the intake runner. The intake valve opens, and then that air that comes in mix with the fuel, and it goes in the cylinder.
fires
But
up.
over here, it kind of, based on what we have over here, it looks like the injector is spraying kind of where the exhaust valve is opening.
Right. Right. So you get,
So it's firing at the wrong time.
so you wouldn't have to smell some gas fumes and extracted gas fumes in the air.
Yeah, but I mean, it kind of stinks right now. Can you smell it? Yeah, it stinks. So, yeah, great
good.
questions. Great questions.
Not
I'm
good
sure.
for the customer.
Yeah, not good for the customer. Yeah, and I don't know how long he ran this car like this. Actually, I might have to tell him this, because after we fix this, he might need catalytic converters.
Yes.
Yeah.
They probably got
Yeah,
parts
his catalytic converters might be defective now. So
not good.
let's see. Let me turn this off. Turn this off, and then let's see. Let's redo this capture. Let's retake this capture one more time. You know,
Just emphasis.
yeah. Just let's just redo it one more time. I just want to double check. It's getting late here.
Yes. Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
I'm using the knowledge now.
All right. So let's analyze this one more time. Let's grab our zoom window here. We still have the same thing.
Same thing.
Yeah, let me smoothen this. All right, so yeah, our ignition is fine. Look at the ignition event. So our ignition is our core is firing at the right time. But look at, yeah, same thing. look at our injector on time.
It should be here.
Yeah, should be here. Now, these injectors also may not be really good because our voltage spike over here is very low. Let me
What's the good voltage spike?
zoom in.
For a good one.
Yeah, look, see how low this is. So it should go up to about, 80 volts or more.
Okay.
Yeah, this is, let me grab our cursors. Our on time looks fine. So on time is good. Yeah, this is, well, we might have two issues here. These injectors,
That's what my head thinking.
yeah, could also be bad. We could have injectors, but injectors being slightly, I kind of want to put an amp clamp around that injector wire.
Gotta get this.
Okay, so let me see, let's zoom back to full. All right, let me just finish this. Cameraman Matt. Cameraman Matt is telling us that we don't have enough.
Time out. We don't have enough time.
Okay,
It's always been that way. With this car.
what's that?
This car, you got all this time run out on this car.
I know. Okay.
So the spike should be always up here.
Yeah, so spark, in terms of spark, we're good,
Right.
okay? But our injector, let me move this, let's mark this.
Power. Exhaust. Intake. Combustion.
Yeah. See, so we have our injectors firing in the exhaust
Yeah.
stroke. Okay, now although we don't have a big spike over here on the injector waveform,
Right.
okay, this could be caused by, a bad quality injector because these injectors were replaced, or maybe a shorted injector. But if the injector was the only problem, it should at least fire at the wrong time, like on the wrong, at the right
time,
stroke.
right stroke.
So it should be on the intake stroke over here.
Right.
Okay, so I mean, it's getting late. We're gonna end this over here. Tomorrow, I'm gonna figure out where I can get a cam and crank correlation waveform. I might have to ask some friends on the Facebook groups that I'm a part of. We can ask someone. Hopefully, we're gonna find someone who can help us out and give us a non-good cam and crank correlation. We will check that tomorrow,
Yes.
and then we can also put an amp clamp around the injector to read the current that the injectors are drawing while they're being turned on.
Yeah.
What do you think?
It's a good idea.
Sounds good?
Yep.
Are we heading towards the right direction?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, we're gonna leave this right over here. This is gonna be the end of part 2. There will be part 3 coming up tomorrow. Cameraman Matt, thanks for being here. I'm sure we will do part 2 with cameraman Kyler because Matt won't be here tomorrow. So thank you very much. Okay, we have, at least right now, we are on the right path, okay? 2 things we know. First thing is the injectors are firing at the wrong time.
Yes.
And also the voltage spike on the injector on the voltage spike on the voltage waveform of the injector is lower than normal. So we want to check that too.
Wow.
All right. So we're going to leave this right over here. If you have any comments, questions, criticism, leave them in the comment box. If you were diagnosing this, how would you go about this? Let us know. And if you're not a subscriber, subscribe to our YouTube channel. My man Robin,
Thank you.
thanks for your questions though. I'm sure,
welcome.
a lot of us, a lot of our subscribers will really enjoy and benefit from your questions.
You're welcome.
Thanks everybody. See you guys tomorrow.